The lights blaze across the studio, brighter than usual, as if the stage itself senses the storm about to unfold. The crowd falls into a tense silence, eyes glued to the two men at the center. On one side, Ben Shapiro, the rapid-fire debater, words sharpened like blades, logic his weapon, intensity his armor. On the other side, Senator Tim Scott, calm but firm, his cadence shaped by years in politics, his words steady as a mountain even when surrounded by chaos. This is not a polite exchange of ideas. This is a battle for the soul of conservatism, and both men know it. The moderator barely finishes the introduction when Shapiro launches into the fray, his tone sharp, urgent, relentless. Tim, you keep talking about optimism, about unity, about painting this picture of America as though hope itself is policy. But here's the truth. Problems don't vanish because we smile at them. Families are drowning in inflation. Crime is surging in our cities. Our borders are wide open, and you want to talk about hope. Hope doesn't stop a criminal. Hope doesn't lower rent. Hope doesn't secure the border. Policy does. And optimism without solutions is just empty rhetoric. His words cut through the air like lightning, the crowd erupting in cheers and gasps, the energy shifting like a wave. Tim Scott does not flinch. He leans forward, his voice calm but powerful, a steady rhythm against Shapiro's rapid fire. Ben, people don't follow policy papers. They follow vision. They need to know leaders believe in them, that the American dream is not dead, that unity is still possible. Yes, crime is real, inflation is painful, but fear cannot be the foundation of our future. Optimism is not weakness, it is strength, it is fuel, it is what keeps the country moving forward even when policy falls short. The crowd reacts, divided, some nodding, others clapping, others jeering. Shapiro shoots back instantly, his delivery accelerating, every word like a punch. Vision without grounding in reality is delusion. America doesn't need speeches that make people feel good while their lives fall apart. America needs solutions. Hard, uncomfortable, sometimes unpopular solutions. You can't legislate feelings, Tim. You can't fix the economy with platitudes. You call it hope, I call it denial. The studio explodes with reaction, the noise overwhelming, the clash unmistakable. Scott raises his hand, his voice booming now, more forceful. And I call it leadership. Leadership is not just passing bills, it is inspiring a nation to believe in itself again. If people lose faith in America, no policy can save it. Unity is not delusion, it is survival. His declaration rings across the hall, the crowd roaring as the debate surges into uncharted territory, two visions of the future colliding with unstoppable force. The energy in the studio intensifies, every word landing with the force of a hammer strike. Ben Shapiro grips the edge of his podium, his eyes narrowed, his voice sharp and relentless. Tim, you keep wrapping politics in poetry, but politics is not a sermon, it's survival. When inflation eats into family savings, when parents can't afford groceries, when crime pushes people to lock themselves inside their homes, unity speeches don't pay the bills. What we need is policy rooted in reality, not optimism painted over suffering. Your vision is admirable, but it's not leadership, it's escapism. His words ripple through the crowd, half of them bursting into applause, the other half booing, the air charged like a storm about to break. Tim Scott doesn't blink. He raises his head, his voice booming now with the cadence of a preacher addressing a congregation. And what happens when people lose faith, Ben? What happens when they stop believing that America is still worth fighting for? You can pass every policy in the world, but if the people feel divided, if they lose hope, those policies will collapse under the weight of mistrust. Unity is not escapism. It's the foundation on which everything else stands. Without belief, without optimism, this country fractures. The words echo like thunder, the audience erupting into wild applause and sharp jeers. Shapiro fires back immediately, his tone cutting like steel, his rhythm relentless. Belief without structure is illusion. Nations don't collapse because they lose hope. They collapse because they ignore reality. Optimism didn't win World War II. Strategy did. Optimism didn't put a man on the moon. Engineering did. Optimism didn't defeat inflation in the 1980s. Policy did. Vision is nothing without action. And your vision, Tim, is untethered from the ground beneath us. The crowd gasps, clapping in waves, the moderator's voice drowned out by the intensity. Scott leans in, his voice lower now, but heavy with a conviction. And yet strategy without vision is hollow. Engineering without belief goes nowhere. Policy without inspiration is just paperwork. You talk as though numbers alone save nations, but people are not numbers. They are flesh, blood, spirit. They need leaders who remind them that this country still has a soul. Fear may win elections, but it cannot build a future. Hope can, the audience reacts, some leaping to their feet, others shaking their heads, the tension boiling over. Shapiro slams his point home, his words rapid fire, his delivery electrifying. And I say a future built on hope without reality is no future at all. Leadership requires truth, and truth is often harsh. It is not popular, it is not inspiring, but it is necessary. People deserve honesty, not comfort. They deserve leaders willing to tell them the hard things, not just what they want to hear. Optimism is a luxury. Reality is survival. The hall explodes again, cheers and boos crashing together like waves. The clash between optimism and realism sharper than ever. The clash between Ben Shapiro and Tim Scott has turned into a storm so powerful the audience feels swept into its center. Shapiro's delivery is relentless, his words firing out like arrows, his tone quick, urgent, unyielding. Tim, you keep romanticizing politics. But real leadership is about solving problems, not narrating them. You say optimism inspires. Fine. But inspiration without action is just distraction. Families can't buy groceries with speeches. They can't pay rent with sermons about hope. They need policies that reduce taxes, that cut red tape, that unleash innovation. Not bedtime stories about unity. The crowd reacts instantly, gasps and applause colliding into a wall of noise, the moderator powerless to intervene. Tim Scott squares his shoulders, his expression firm, his voice rolling out with the strength of conviction. And what good are policies if the people don't believe in them? What good is cutting taxes if half the nation thinks the system is stacked against them? What good is unleashing innovation if communities feel left behind, abandoned, invisible? Leadership is not just a ledger of laws. It is the ability to remind people they belong, that their future matters, that this nation has a story bigger than its struggles. Hope is not a distraction. It is the glue that keeps this country from tearing itself apart. His words echo with thunder, the audience erupting again, some rising to clap, others shouting in protest. Shapiro snaps back, his voice sharp as a blade, his sentences rapid, building momentum like a drumbeat. Belonging doesn't pay bills, Tim. Belonging doesn't lower crime. Belonging doesn't stop inflation. These are real problems with real consequences, and optimism doesn't fix them. It numbs them. It distracts from them. The truth is hard, and people deserve leaders who treat them like adults, who face reality, not sugarcoat it. That's how nations survive, not with feelings, but with facts. His declaration cuts through the air, the audience roaring in response, half in approval, half in outrage. Scott raises his hand, his tone fierce now, every word heavy with intensity. Facts matter, yes, but facts without vision are cold, lifeless. They don't inspire people to fight, to sacrifice, to dream. You think I ignore reality, but I embrace it. I just refuse to be imprisoned by it. Optimism is not sugarcoating, it is fuel. It is what carried this nation through its darkest nights. What gave strength when facts alone said survival was impossible. Without optimism, people give up. And when people give up, even the best policies fail. His words hang in the air like a challenge, the audience thundering with applause, some chanting his name. Shapiro leans forward, his face taut, his voice cutting through the noise with precision. And when leaders trade reality for hope, they betray the people they serve. Optimism without grounding is a drug. It makes people feel good while their lives get worse. You call it fuel. I call it denial, and denial is deadly. The crowd explodes again, the room quaking with the force of divided belief as the storm rages on. The debate has now reached a fever pitch. The studio transformed into a battlefield where two contrasting visions of leadership clash with unrelenting force. Ben Shapiro leans in, his eyes blazing, his voice a torrent of logic and urgency. Tim, optimism doesn't stop bullets. It doesn't put food on the table. It doesn't defend our borders or strengthen our economy. You stand here telling Americans to believe, to dream, to hope. But hope without execution is abandonment. You cannot tell people who are drowning to simply believe they can swim. You need to give them a lifeline. You need to build the boat. You need to act. Without action, hope is cruelty disguised as kindness. His words land like hammer blows. The crowd gasping, some clapping furiously, others booing, the tension so high it feels like the walls themselves are vibrating. Tim Scott responds with the force of conviction, his tone rising like a preacher's chorus. Ben, and what do you call leadership that strips away hope, that reduces people to statistics, that pretends policies alone will solve the soul of this nation? People are not machines, Ben. They are human beings. They need vision. They need inspiration. They need to know that tomorrow can be better than today. Policies are vital, yes, but without optimism, they collapse under cynicism and mistrust. A nation held together by fear is a nation already broken. My optimism is not cruelty, it is survival. His words reverberate like thunder, drawing applause and shouts, the hall electrified by the collision of ideals. Shapiro snaps back instantly, his pace quickening, his words like rapid gunfire. Survival is not built on slogans. Survival is built on responsibility, accountability, and reality. When leaders hide behind hope to avoid making hard decisions, people suffer. Inflation doesn't vanish because we tell people to believe. Crime doesn't disappear because we smile. Leadership is telling the truth, even when the truth hurts. If that makes me the cynic, then so be it. Because reality saves lives, false hope destroys them. The audience roars, divided down the middle, the clash impossible to ignore. Scott raises his voice again, his tone rising above the noise, fierce and unyielding. And what destroys lives faster than despair? Ben, what happens when people stop believing? They stop fighting. They stop striving. They stop holding their leaders accountable. Hope is not hiding. It is fuel. It is the reason people march, protest, work, sacrifice. Without hope, this nation would have collapsed long ago. The American story is not just about policies. It is about dreams carried through fire. I will never apologize for reminding people to dream. His words strike deep, the crowd chanting, the energy boiling over. Shapiro shakes his head, his voice slicing through the chaos. Dreams without structure are nightmares, Tim. And the more leaders sell dreams without a plan, the more people wake up to devastation. America deserves the truth, not comfort. Leadership must be rooted in reality, not rhetoric. The hall erupts again, the debate now less an exchange of words and more a war of visions, each sentence crashing like waves against rock. The air in the studio feels combustible, as though one more spark might set the entire room ablaze. Ben Shapiro stands firm, his hands slicing through the air as his rapid-fire delivery crescendos into a furious storm. Tim, leadership is not telling people what they want to hear. It's telling them what they need to hear. It's not painting pictures of a dream America. It's confronting the broken reality of the one we live in. Hope doesn't stop inflation. Optimism doesn't secure the border. Dreams don't reduce crime. Only action, only hard choices, only the courage to face the truth without flinching can do that. Anything else is theater. His words hit like thunder, the crowd reacting with an explosion of cheers and shouts, the divide growing sharper. Tim Scott raises his head, his voice booming, his tone like a chorus rolling over the storm. And I say leadership is more than policies. It is the spirit to inspire people to rise above fear. Yes, inflation is real, crime is real, division is real. But if you strip away hope, you strip away the very reason people fight to fix those problems. You think facts alone will save us, but facts without faith are lifeless. Hope is not theater, it is the heartbeat of democracy. Without it, all your policies are paper, and this nation collapses under cynicism. The audience roars, their voices clashing as fiercely as the men on stage. Shapiro snaps back, his words sharp, his tone relentless. Faith without facts is fraud, Tim. It deceives the very people you claim to inspire. Leaders who sell hope without solutions are liars, plain and simple. The people don't need to be coddled. They need the truth, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. The truth is the only path forward, and leaders who refuse to give it betray the trust of the people. His voice echoes like a gavel striking down, the crowd gasping, clapping, shouting all at once. Scott responds, his face set in fire, his words ringing like a verdict. And truth without hope is despair, Ben. You call my vision a lie, but I call it survival. You want to strip people down to cold numbers, but I want to lift them up with belief. Without optimism, truth becomes unbearable. Without hope, reality becomes chains. You can call it soft, but I call it strength. The strength that carried this nation through every storm. The studio quakes, the audience on its feet, torn between two visions, two truths, two definitions of leadership. The moderator's voice is lost in the chaos, the camera zooming in on the locked stares of Shapiro and Scott, their eyes blazing, their voices unshaken. The debate ends not with resolution, but with the silence that follows a storm, the kind of silence that lingers heavy and unresolved in every home where the debate is watched. Across the nation, one question hangs in the air, unanswered, unrelenting. Will America's future be built on cold reality or unbreakable hope?